Next, we finally move on to the Heisei series with Godzilla from 1984. This movie was originally going to, instead of having just a guy in a suit, they were originally supposed to primarily use a 20-foot tall robot called the Cybot Godzilla. However, they didn't really like how it looked in the film, so they had to reduce it. They still had it in the film, but it wasn't like a primary thing. Funnily enough, this happened 2 other times with the 1976 King Kong remake, which had a 40-something foot tall robot, and Shin Godzilla as well. Next is Godzilla vs. Biollante, where this movie was decided via a contest which I think lasted for 3 years, where people could submit their own Godzilla film idea, with another film idea, just simply called Godzilla 2, being reworked into a film called Gunhead. I'm sure everybody remembers this classic movie, this iconic movie, Gunhead. Yeah. Next is Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. Just Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. Originally, instead of Ghidorah, can you guess who was supposed to be Godzilla's enemy for the film? That's right, King Kong. Yeah, and guess what? They were still going to keep the cyborg stuff that Ghidorah goes through. Yeah, Kong was supposed to become a cyborg. I don't know if he was supposed to be the villain. He probably was. I'm pretty sure they really did, was just swap Kong out for Ghidorah. But could you imagine that? That would get everybody to shut up about the Monsterverse being, like, out there. I mean, actually, to be fair, Kong might end up still becoming a cyborg in the Monsterverse if the Beast Glove has anything to say. Anyway, sorry for that. Next is Godzilla vs. Mothra, or Godzilla the Mutant Dinosaur if you're from Argentina, I think. Originally, this was supposed to be a Mothra solo movie with Batra still in there as her opponent, as Mothra at the time was voted among women as their favourite kaiju. Next is Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Again, this is from the 90s. This movie would have given Mechagodzilla the power to split apart into several different machines, which would have been awesome, by the way. And just a little fun fact, instead of Mechagodzilla, they were originally going to have a monster called Berserk be the villain. See, Berserk would have been a robotic alien who crashes via a meteor on Earth and begins eating various metals, with his primary goal being to mimic the planet's dominant life form, in this case, Godzilla. That would have been fucking awesome. Like, imagine seeing Berserk in a movie. Anyway, next up is Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. So, originally, instead of the monster Mogira being in this film, originally it was supposed to be Mechagodzilla coming back to help Godzilla fight Space Godzilla. However, Toho decided against it as they thought that this would have been a little too one-sided. Yet, in the movie, they still say Mogira's an upgraded mecha. So it wouldn't have mattered to begin with. They should have just went with Mechagodzilla. Anyway, next up is Godzilla vs. Destroyer, where after the film released and Godzilla tragically died in the film, they held a funeral for him. In real life, you could attend this funeral. Hell yeah! But at the same time, I shed a tear.
Cosmos, open the door! Open the door!